Hey, I'm Tristan,
And I'm Gabe.
and we're Thinking Man Games, where we think about games so you will too. And this week, I think the topic should be remakes,
Yeah.
specifically in lieu of the whole DuckTales remastered that came out earlier this week, which I understand didn't get a lot of praise.
Yeah, I've seen mixed things on it. A couple of different sites like really hated it. I'll pull some up now while we're talking.
I'm pretty sure GameSpot gave it like a 4 or something like that,
Okay,
or a
so let's
3.
see. The PS3 version, I just want to make sure. Okay, PS3 version has 19 reviews. 360 version has 22. Okay, so I assume that's the most. So it goes up as high as a 9 from Machinima. They gave it a 9, and then Polygon gave it a 5. I know they really didn't like it. I remember theirs was one of the first reviews to come out, I believe. Joystick gave it a 6. Metro gave it a 5. Edge gave it a 5, although they tend to rate their games lower, so.
Yeah.
Um, but the only person I've talked to who said they really liked it was Max Parker at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I talked to him about it the other day, and he said he loved it. He didn't really have a problem with the controls. He said it really felt like, like they put an HD coat of paint on a game that is still, from the NES era.
Hmm.
So I guess that's understandable. It's a kind of common complaint, I guess, that I have with some of these HD remakes is that they need to remember that next gen doesn't just mean graphics.
Yeah.
I think Devil May Cry is a great example of that. I kind of ripped that HD remake apart, or HD remastering apart, because even though the game, looked better during gameplay and everything, the camera still felt like it was a PS2 game, and it
Yeah.
made it really, really hard to, believe that this was a real, kind of not even a reimagining, but bringing the old Devil May Cry games up, with the times.
Well, that's why I
Yeah.
think there's a big difference between HD remasters and then like HD remakes, that
Yeah.
where they kind of do a whole different thing. They add mechanics or they fix things
Hmm.
from previously. But like you said, anything from the PS2 era really hasn't gotten anything like that because it's still somewhat recent.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some good examples of it working really, really well, and I think that says something. Like Star Fox, for example, and Ocarina of Time on the 3DS both had really good re-releases that look leagues better than their old counterparts, especially Star Fox. But the thing is, if you go back and play Star Fox 64 and Ocarina of Time just on the N64, they still play fine.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that much trouble. Same thing with like Halo, the first one, when they the graphics on Halo Anniversary don't even look all that great because rarely do HD remakes really look like brand new games.
Yeah,
But it still plays fine. I think that's the thing they have to worry about is will this game still play okay? And if not, they might just want to remake it completely.
yeah, and I haven't played DuckTales Remastered, but I feel like they didn't really do much in the way of changing the way it played, which is why there were some control complaints. Or am
Yeah.
I totally off base with
Yeah,
that?
and that can be kind of a charm sort of thing. Of course, that depends on whether you played the original game.
Yeah, I haven't even played the original, even though I played Darkwing Duck, which is kind of the one behind it. But anyways, I was kind of wanted to talk about just how people get so angry about these remakes. Not only do they think it's like disappointing, but people get kind of angry when there's a remake announced. Not necessarily with DuckTales, people were actually really happy about that.
Hmm.
But in other circles or in with different franchises, there's almost like an inherent angriness,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, just for a remake or more specifically a reboot.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think people freaked out a couple years ago when XCOM got announced.
Yeah,
And I don't mean Enemy Unknown. I mean when it was just XCOM, what's now the Bureau XCOM Declassified, which they went through like two different iterations before they got to what we have today, where it was a very pretty generic looking first person shooter, and then a survival horror type game, which I don't really know how that will work with XCOM because it's all kind of cheesy. And
yeah,
then to now this like super tactical shooter, which kind of reminds me of like a Mass Effect, but wearing
more
glasses.
tactical.
Yeah, uh, and because of that, early on when I saw that gameplay from the first person shooter, and then Enemy Unknown came out, my first thought was, I hope how well Enemy Unknown is doing will make them put a bullet in this one because obviously a strategy game can still sell. But then when they reshowed it called it the Bureau XCOM Declassified, obviously giving the kind of proper XCOM series to Firaxis with their, Enemy Unknown or whatever the next one's going to be. Enemy Within, I've heard, although that might be an expansion. But anyway, when they showed off that game, the Bureau XCon Declassified, I thought it actually, looked really good. At least from a gameplay perspective, I'm still really worried because the cutscenes and the voice acting seems really iffy to me. But as far as gameplay goes, I think they found a good medium. There's not too much shooting, even though it's a shooter. You're spending a lot of time managing kind of on the fly. But it still has that classic XCOM vibe and kind of atmosphere, I guess.
Yeah.
You can kind of cut the tension with a knife sometimes.
Yeah, there's a perfect example of that, though, even though it's not, you wouldn't really call it a reboot since it's a numbered sequel, is Fallout 3.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I still kind of see that as a reboot because it's a totally different departure from, the previous installments. But I remember I wasn't really into the internet and, what's going on with the industry when that game came out. But I remember reading some stuff, like, in advance when the game was first announced, and, like, hardcore fans were not excited for that game. Mm-hmm. They did not want something that ruined their idea of what Fallout was, and it turned out to be, those fans mostly turned out to like it.
Yeah, it's considered like the best in the series now.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny too. I think it's not just limited to gamers, but when something's going well, people have a tendency to not like any sort of change, unless very rarely will they really like it. But I think, obviously, with something like Call of Duty, you can see what happens if that doesn't change, where eventually everyone's screaming for stuff to change. Although, obviously, not the time needed to reload a sniper rifle. But yeah, with Fallout, obviously, I think Bethesda kind of put their Elder Scrolls sort of spin on it, but people loved it because they make a good game. But I think it's kind of rare where something like that will happen. And obviously, a genre change is very rarely a good idea. I know Shadowrun, I actually saw, when I was at this Saints Row 4 live stream, which I'll talk about a little later, I saw a guy playing the Shadowrun shooter on Xbox, which the servers, I'm not even sure they're up anymore. But he was playing this game, and I had reviewed it, actually. It's okay. And I was kind of surprised, because Shadowrun Returns just came out, which kind of takes it back to the strategy roots. And it was really weird seeing something like, I mean, it's not exactly an obscure series, but there's not too much fanfare over the name Shadowrun. And to bring that back as a completely different genre struck me as odd, as did bringing back XCOM as a shooter. But yeah, I think it can work out sometimes. And then there are some games where kind of they learn to live in harmony, or there's weird stuff behind the scenes, like Halo Wars. Obviously, Halo started as a strategy game. For the Mac back, this was in 1999.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it started as a strategy game. It was announced at the Macworld convention that it was coming to Mac and PC originally. And then it became a third-person shooter, and then Microsoft bought Bungie, and it became a first-person shooter, exclusive to the Xbox. But then Halo Wars came out, and people were kind of like, why is there a Halo strategy game? Well, it was originally a strategy game. Not to say that game was perfect, because it was definitely kind of a kind of watered down experience, but sometimes stuff like that can happen. But yeah, I'm not sure how to feel. There's been a lot of these lately, these classic franchises coming back, and some of them I think are obviously doing okay. I think Shadowrun Returns actually was doing all right, but then others I'm just not so sure about. Maybe they're not as good as we remember them.
I'm trying to think of an example where a game was rebooted with a genre change and it was just really terrible. I can't even think right now. Something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Besides the fact that, outside of reboots and remakes, there's also kind of an anger towards iteration. Like you said, like with Call of Duty, it's like there's not enough change.
Yeah.
But then with other series, there's too much change.
Yeah.
And there's just a few times where there's a happy medium for most.
Yeah. With Call of Duty, did you see that Rev 3 Games video that went up, I think, yesterday?
Yeah, I just watched it this morning.
Yeah,
actually.
They were talking about how it's more like a sport at this point, because there are people that love that and they don't really want it to change. As far as kind of core gameplay goes, I'm kind of on the same boat. I don't really think that stuff needs to change in Call of Duty, but what does is, like, they seem to kind of be living in a bubble. Either the developers or the PR people, they're talking about, they're like, oh, some of the technology in this game is past next gen, and then you put up a video of that next to Battlefield, and honestly, Call of Duty, all the footage they've shown for Ghosts looks like it's from the Xbox, the 360, I mean.
I never thought Call of Duty was technically impressive, even when it was in its prime as like a its huge
Well, when
success.
four
Even
came
that still
out,
is.
I thought it was pretty damn pretty, but it looks very similar to that. The biggest change I think actually was from Modern Warfare 3 to Black Ops 2, and not just because of some of the stylistic things, but textures on the environment started looking better. Um,
Yeah.
but man, it's just they said, "Oh yeah, we don't have enough time with these yearly releases." It's like you're going to next gen. You need to give me a reason to buy that, and that means making a new engine for the next system. And the only company that I think has been able to do this, making real leaps, at least creatively, from year to year, has been Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed, and that still had its issues because Assassin's Creed 3 was extremely, extremely buggy. And I think that's in part because the game had to be, coming out at that time. Now they have a 3-year development cycle on those, as
They
opposed to
have different teams
yeah,
for
they have
that.
like 12 different teams working on each game, and then different teams, so they're staggered.
Even Call of Duty has two,
Oh yeah,
for the
Treyarch
Treyarch
and
and
yeah, but it's just
Infinity
like two
Ward.
years isn't enough time to make a new engine,
No, yeah,
and
it's still not.
when you're making and when a new console's coming out, you need to, and you see obviously it's or maybe you can make a new engine because Dice is doing it with Battlefield. Battlefield 4 is the most technically impressive game I saw at when I was watching E3 coverage, and it was my game of the show because it really blew my mind with some of the multiplayer stuff. But the faces in that game compared to the faces in Call of Duty Ghosts are night and day.
Hmm. You're talking about the 64 player thing that really blew you away?
That and then when they took the elevator to the top of the building and then the entire thing collapsed as they jumped out, um, I thought that was crazy. Plus the kind of tablet integration, and hopefully that gets some browser support for the commander mode. I thought was awesome being able to do that on the go. But that sort of thing, like when I saw that gameplay and some of the single player stuff, I saw what's his name, Michael something. I'll look it up. He was on The Wire. Omar Epps.
Oh,
Uh,
I haven't watched The Wire except for like one episode in passing. But I was gonna say that 64 player thing. Let me tell you something. Mag
yeah.
did it first. No.
Yeah. Oh, Mac was even past that, wasn't it?
What? Yeah, it was like 128. But let me tell you something. Mag was bad, so doesn't
Yeah.
mean much.
I've heard
I
mixed
bought
things.
that and I immediately returned it.
Oh,
I
really?
couldn't I could not stand it.
I very rarely do that, like where I return a game right
Me
away.
neither, and that's why that stands out as one of the few times I've actually done that.
Omar
Even
Epps,
though
by
it
the way,
just wasn't my thing.
is the dude from House. I'm thinking of Michael K. Williams. That's his name.
Mm.
He has a big scar on his face, but when I saw the trailer for that game, I thought, wait a minute, that's Chalky White from Boardwalk Empire, and then I found out it was. But obviously, you can't do anything like that with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm worried because I get it every year because I enjoy the campaign and I play the multiplayer for a little bit and it's fun or whatever. But I think maybe this is the wake up call we need because if you actually look at pre-order numbers, for once, Battlefield is destroying Call of Duty, at least on next gen.
I think E3 has a lot to do with
Yeah,
that.
I think it
You
did.
said.
It showed a lot better. And interestingly enough, Assassin's Creed 4 and Watch Dogs are pre-ordering much higher on next gen than on current gen. I was shocked to, see that.
Usually there's a slower transition into
Especially
next gen.
with this huge generation we've had. It's been 8
Yeah.
years. So I really didn't expect that at all, and it's cool that they're willing to jump into it.
Well, talking about games and stuff that don't change much, Call of Duty, from moving on to things that change a lot. This isn't in games specifically, but I think it's a prime example of something that changed a lot and annoyed a lot of people. Something to do like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie franchise, obviously. It's not games, but from the original trilogy to the prequels,
Mm-hmm.
people got very vitriolic towards that, and I've seen that in games, but in terms of all entertainment, I've never seen like a property that was so loved and then almost hated in its entirety.
It's funny too because I didn't realize like how much people hated those movies when I
Me
saw them when I was
neither.
little. Like I
Yeah, because we
loved.
were younger
I
and
had
we just
so
liked the
yeah. I
movies.
had so much fun watching those movies in theaters, especially Episode 2, which is objectively the worst of the movies.
No, yeah, definitely.
Episode 2 sucks, but that fight at the end with Jango Fett and Count Dooku, I was like, hell yeah, Yoda, get him! And I
Yeah,
was laughing when he squeaked. But I love those movies in theaters, and now I go back and
me
watch them,
too.
and I'm like, these suck. And I'm like, I don't know if it's me being cynical or me just kind of, having a wider range of movies to watch and realizing that they weren't that good.
Hmm.
But I think part of it is just George Lucas is kind of a crappy director.
Yeah, he
He
is.
created a really cool universe, but he can't direct movies, and that's uh, maybe why it was a good thing he didn't direct Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. Um, but yeah, I especially man, Episode 3, the way that ended was so cheesy. He can't write romance for. Oh man, it was bad. But yeah, I agree, and it was strange, and as much as I liked those movies, watching them, and I still think like Episode 1, the lightsaber scene at the end of Episode 1 is the best scene in any of the movies to me. But
I think that, well, out of the prequels, I think people will agree with you on that because
oh
Darth Maul was by far the coolest part of the
oh
prequels,
yeah, I'd say
even though he got written out of it so quickly.
yeah, and I'd say he's even or that they brought him back in the stupid TV show, but whatever.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I haven't watched it, but
but yeah, it's weird, and I'm really curious to see where J.J. Abrams takes it. I don't know. How do you feel about him?
um, I saw the only thing I've really seen of his is Star Trek, the reboot. Actually, I've probably seen more than that, but I can't even
Sort
think
of the
of what else he
reboot.
did.
It's weird.
Did he do Super 8?
Yes.
Or was that okay? So then I saw that too, which I enjoyed. But
I thought Super
I
8
don't
was
know.
okay.
I feel like he's uh, very he's a fan of the series, so I feel like he can do a good job with it. But this is what I saw an interview with him, and it really made me have a little more confidence for him. He said that he's going to make it to the point where he's going to respect the old films, and by that I'm sure he meant the original trilogy, but not so much that he's like revering those movies.
And I
with
think that's
the new ones.
necessary
Yeah.
because if you look at some of the old Star Wars movies, I was watching the scene where spoiler alert, Boba Fett dies, or
Yeah.
at least gets thrown into the pit. I'm not sure if he gets killed in that scene.
Well, in the books, he is alive and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
but that scene is so terrible. If you go back and watch it,
Well,
not
what
just
were
the,
you watching it on though? That's the thing. Were you watching it on like a DVD, like a recent release?
no, oh, I'm not talking about the remake. I just watched like a cap scene on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
But it was so badly dialogue in it was bad. The way they choreographed it was like comically bad. And I think people kind of have these rose tinted glasses. Not to say Star Wars, they aren't great movies 'cause they are, but there's still there's some pretty big flaws with them that aren't just technical.
Mhm.
Not the least of which is that George Lucas could not write dialogue, and that kind of trend almost continued in the next ones. But yeah, I think he needs to, like you said, he needs to respect it, but at the same time, he doesn't need to be afraid to change things up a little bit. Now, I don't want him to make it Star Trek, with the Star
Yeah,
Wars.
with Star
spin.
Wars, exactly. Yeah,
Because those are,
very different.
those are different movies, and I love Star Trek too. I thought it was, and I don't mean the Wrath of Khan. I mean Into Darkness.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I thought it was better than the first one, but yeah, I'm a little concerned because I saw Super 8 and I wasn't crazy about it. I thought, especially the way he ended it was so like it was such a Deus Ex Machina type thing.
I really liked how he did it up to the reveal of the alien.
Yeah, I liked that a lot, and I liked that train thing was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The other thing we have to talk about quickly, some two high-profile games that are coming out this Tuesday, which will be the day before this goes up. Splinter Cell Blacklist and Saints Row 4. Both currently hold the exact same Metacritic score, at least for Xbox, of an
What are they at?
83, both of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is almost identical for, how far about 1 or 2 points off from how those two series typically score. And I had the chance to play Saints Row 4 on Friday for a little while, and it is hilarious.
Yeah.
The controls are okay. The camera actually is really good. I was surprised with how fast everything's moving, and the effects and everything. The art style works really, really well. I'll probably wait to get it since I am also getting Splinter Cell and the Bureau in a few days. But yeah, I'm definitely. I think people are gonna love that game, and I always get a little bit irked when people say that they wish it was more like Saints Row 1 and 2, because those games were Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah,
uh,
I really enjoyed Saints Row 2 though. I actually just recently beat Saints Row the third
uh-huh.
for the first time after like missing it for a long time, and I'm gonna call it right now. That's one of my favorite games of the generation.
I just love how they found their niche, and even though it's
It's
better late than never, you know. Um,
yeah,
and I just love how. Oh my god, the beginning of Saints Row 4. I won't spoil it for you. It is so ridiculous. It's perfect. And I
yeah.
played Saints Row. I think it was 1 back in the day, and I was just like, this feels like a cheap GTA game. And then I'm like, wait a minute, how are you now the president with superpowers? But it doesn't matter because it's awesome.
Yeah,
And you can tell they love making games, and it's awesome that Deep Silver managed
I'm
to
really
secure
excited
them.
for Saints Row 4
Yeah,
for sure.
I think it'll be good, and I think they picked the right time before GTA came out
Yeah,
to release that. Um, I don't know why they picked the exact same day. I think they should have released it last week before Splinter Cell and the Bureau came out, because I believe they got the release date. Uh, I think they announced it after Splinter Cell, but before the Bureau. The Bureau should have been out last week too. And then Disney Infinity actually is out on the 18th, and I saw some stores are actually stocking it early, and I think that's going to be awesome. I'm not.
I've
Gonna,
seen so many ads for that.
yeah, it looks like it's actually more than just Skylanders, and we'll wrap this up. CNanners described it as like Gary's mod almost, in that you can kind of create anything you want. The toy box mode lets you basically mix together Disney universes, while the main story modes don't. You have to be a character from that universe to play in certain areas, which of course means forking over more money so you can
Yeah,
get those levels. I think there's 5 different worlds, and you can play in 3 of them with the starter pack. But anyway, I'm sure kids are gonna love it. Maybe I'll give it a try.
I
But
love Disney, but I would give
it's
it
a
more
money
of a
haul.
try if it wasn't in that
Yeah,
model. But
yeah. No
what can
pun
you do?
intended.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I
Alrighty.
think that about wraps it up.
Yep.
So, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stupid stuff. See you
It's not
next time,
stupid.
guys.
All right. See ya.